All right, so it looks like we've got a lot of folks joining now. I think we're ready to get going. First of all, good morning, and thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Daryl Lambert, and I work with Rising Sun Center for Opportunity, a workforce development nonprofit based in Oakland, California. Rising Sun is the workforce engagement lead for California's Solar and Multifamily Affordable Housing Program, which is a state-funded solar incentive program that has workforce development goals built into it. I want to go ahead and get out of the way to make space for the folks that we brought together for this event today. But before I do, I would like to provide a little bit of framing. In the workforce development world, we have the privilege of engaging with employers on a daily basis, many of which are doing the important work of making the clean energy transition happen in California. We also have the privilege of engaging with our colleagues in this workforce development community that make every effort to connect the best talent around to that work. Today, we have held space for these speakers and panelists to come together and highlight a link that they have, a link that is often talked about, but in a manner that minimizes, misinterprets, and misrepresents some of the people at the center of it. Today, we seek to reframe that link in a way that we hope uncovers a missed opportunity, an opportunity that can support businesses in performing quality work, one that can support people with tremendous talent, skills, and value in finding a space to apply these assets fully, and one that, when done right, can benefit our communities and the households that make those communities. This is an opportunity that, by taking, we believe can support communities that truly thrive. Today on this tremendous roster comprised of changemakers, you will meet people whose true skills, talent, and value has been seen in spite of one aspect of their personal experience. And let me emphasize their past personal experience that is often the focus of hiring managers. People who have broken through the narrow perceptions of others, perceptions that force them into a box that classifies who they are now based on something from their past. They have broken through to accomplish their goals and maximize the ways that they apply their unique skills and talents. You will meet people who see that workforce development is more than just training and skill development. Rather, it's about taking a whole person approach to support individuals with tremendous skills and talents who are ready to realize their goals. You will meet people who dedicate themselves to understanding the barriers that our justice system creates in people's lives, who team up with job seekers that are involved or impacted by that system to overcome those barriers. Today, we are here to talk about what it means to have a fair chance at accessing employment, how, as an employer, there is an advantage to offering that fair chance, and that there are resources and organizations that are out there that can help you as a business owner to leverage that competitive advantage and become a fair chance employer. To start us off, we'll meet a few speakers that can speak from lived experience about what is truly possible when a fair chance is afforded. I yield any further explanation to them, but to get us started, I'm going to pass this off to Kenneth Wells really quickly, a quick bio. Mr. Wells currently owns and operates O&M Solar Services LLC, the largest African-American owned solar company in California. Ken is a licensed electrical contractor as well as a photovoltaic NABCEP practitioner. In his 10 years in the solar industry, Ken has worked to bring equity and representation to the solar industry among disadvantaged communities. He currently also serves as the chair of SOMA's advisory board. SOMA is Solar on Multifamily Affordable Housing Program. Ken, give it to you.
Oh, I didn't hit that button. Hey, good morning, everyone. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for having me, Daryl. Thank you to the team, the SOMA team and the grid and everyone at RISE. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be a part of this event. And I don't want to hold the event because I know it's jam-packed with a lot of great information. And I want to get to that point. But I just want to bring some of my experience and share a little bit of my story. So I have been in the solar industry for the last 10 years. I started in 2011. And I'll share my journey. My journey started with going to Homeboy Industries and getting trained, paid training actually, to acquire skills in solar. And anybody know back in 2011, if you were able, when I got my certification and got out of that class, I mean, you know, I started at the mom and pop shops, and that certification made me go. Any office I walked into, they were ready to hire me. Because, you know, we had a huge demand for workers and a huge demand for solar. Over the years, I've worked at several different companies, worked my way up from being an installer to being a lead roof installer to being a foreman to eventually landing a career job as a project manager for a large commercial company. And that's where I feel like, there was a strong transition for me. That led me to develop my skill sets further and eventually ended up at Sunrun as a regional construction supervisor. And I served there for about 2 years, managing over 45 employees for that company. From there, I graduated and was able to upstart my own solar company. And over the last 3 years, starting in 2018, over the last 3 years, I've been able to manage and build small commercial and residential projects across Southern California, some in Northern California, working as a subcontractor or direct to client for a lot of the large companies that I built a network with over the years. I serve as an advisory council to the SOMA, where we help to address the issues with the program and the implementation and the rollout and ensure that the program is successful. I currently was elected to the board of directors for CALSA, which is a California Energy and Storage membership of 650 solar contractors here in California. They work on advocacy, they work on policy, they work on political agenda and lobbying for the solar industry here in the state of California. I say all that to say, I have been able to build an illustrious career in the solar industry over the last 10 years, making more money than I ever thought I would make. And I'm very, very grateful to this industry. I'm grateful to all my colleagues and every one of you. I think everyone in this industry is, I would say, forward-thinking individuals. You have to be able to be in solar and to be at the levels that individuals who are contractors on this call, I would assume would be. But I want to use that as a case study. I go back further than 10 years ago. I go back maybe 5 years before that. I grew up in Compton, California. And, if you have any idea about that city, I'm sure it isn't anything good besides some of the artists that have come out of that struggle. And I can say my experiences were similar to a lot of other individuals in those type of communities. Was an at-risk youth. Ended up going to being incarcerated. Let me say it that way. I ended up being incarcerated, and I ended up serving 6 years in prison. And I always ask this question: if you send a young individual at 15 and a half to prison, and they get out at 21, the way that our current prison system is structured, there is really no programs to rehabilitate. What do you expect that young individual to do? What is going to be his recourse when he's out? We hope that individual reenter into society. They will be able to positively contribute and reassimilate. But we know most of the time that's not the case. I can say for myself, why I was able to be successful is because there was a homeboy industry who, once I got out, they were able to receive me and help me get I'm 21 now. I've been in prison for the last 5.5 years. I have no life skills. I have no email. I don't have anything. So I'm learning about society all over again. And that enough is a challenge for someone that was in my shoes. And then to go from that, go through homeboy industry where they supported you, they helped you get a job, they helped you get the skill. That turned into me Grid Alternative, where they offer volunteer experience on the job training. That turned into me being able to get gainful employment. And over the last years to build the skill set that I've built to be in the position that I'm built. I say that to say, as a case study, I think, any individual who's a hiring manager would probably think if they saw my resume today, they will want to hire me as a general manager or somebody who helps to manage their firm and their organization and push it in the right direction. But if you would have saw me 10 years ago and I would have walked in your door, you probably would have thought that this individual this isn't a job for this individual, because of my background and my experience. So I want to use that case study to show and when I think about it, that if I would have got out and solar had not been around, I don't see another industry that I would have gotten into to be able to excel at the level I have in such a short amount of time. And I think what I was able to accomplish, while there are other cases of the same thing, is not the norm. We don't have a lot of individuals coming from the purpose behind what we're trying to do and can push to create careers in these things. I just was fortunate enough to know people and get into a good network and understand the opportunities that was available for me. So I use that case study to point out that in this industry, I would encourage any employer, any recruiter to see fair chance hiring not as something that I'm trying to do because it's the moral thing to do, but more so as it's the advantageous things to do. We know that the solar industry lacks a skillful talent pool. We know that there's a huge demand for a labor force in our industry. We're projected to grow over 52% over the next 10 years as an industry in the United States. So point directed to is when we're discussing fair chance hiring, what I want to impress to every colleague of mine on this webinar is that it's about taking advantage of missed opportunities that we've had in the past to bring good talent to this industry. And not only do I think that that's important, I think it's important for us as an industry to not allow us to miss something that I think gives us a competitive edge when you're talking about industries that we're competing with. We know if you look at the unions, you look at the utility companies, something that they use to promote their agenda is, hey, we do fair chance hiring. We're doing economic development in these communities. They bring in individuals to show, look at these individuals and the impact that our industry or our approach has had on their lives. And I want to stress to us as an industry, no one can do it as well as we can if we took it as a banner for our industry, that fair chance hiring and equal opportunities is a must as an industry. It's an industry standard that we give opportunities. We provide workforce development as an industry, things like that Grid is doing, things that Homegrown Industry is doing, and Rise, and there's so many organizations that are there. What I believe it presents is the opportunity for us to build a strong industry, a strong workforce that will help us forward the agenda of solar, help us push the agenda of what the future should look like, which we know we want it to be equal, we want it to be diversified, and we want to make sure that we provide firsthand opportunities to individuals like myself who once trained, once given the orientation on where they can go, where the opportunities are, I believe will excel in this industry. And I want to take the time out my day, what I was doing, to get on this call to encourage each one of my colleagues that's here. It's so important as a community that we look at it from the perspective of how workforce development gives you the competitive edge when it comes to getting a contract. Most of these developments, when it comes to government, when it comes to political, they are asking us to include workforce development. They are asking us to include inclusive hiring. And I think as we champion that, and you make that a part of what your brand is, and you make that a part of how you hire, it gives you a competitive advantage. So I just want to take a moment, use myself to say, look, here's an individual who comes from the background that we're here talking about, and how over a period of time, with the support of a lot of people who when I sat down with them to interview, they were able to look past my inability to interview. They were able to look past my inability to present myself a certain way and see the work ethic. They saw the ambition, they saw the passion, and they were able to use that and give me the work skills and worked with me to get to where I now currently am. And I'm forever grateful to this industry. I'm forever grateful to individuals who have been there along my path, my career, that have helped me get to where I am. And I just want to, share that living experience. And I hope that as this webinar goes on and the team shares information, and we take it with the heart that what we're trying to do is establish that solar renewable energy is the future. And it's not just the future because of the resources, but it's the future because our society deserves equity and justice when it comes to environment and when it comes to economics. So, Daryl, I appreciate what you all are doing. I appreciate the call, the webinar, and I'm gonna stay on and listen. I can't be on my video, but any questions? Maybe I could share you for share my contact info. I have you can reach me at kwintouch@gmail.com. And then Daryl, you could share the link with my information for anybody who want to reach out to me directly with any question. I would love to talk to anybody who would love to talk about this type of stuff. If there's something your company is doing directly and you want some insight about, programs or things that you can implement, please feel free to reach out to me. And I'll turn it back over to you, Daryl.
Thank you. Yeah, and we'll make sure that information gets out to everybody. Ken, thank you so much for sharing a bit about your history, your background, and what you've accomplished. To go to our next keynote speaker, I'd like to pass the mic to Shelley Winner. Shelley is a restorative justice advocate whose goal is to educate the world on the benefits of hiring the formerly incarcerated. Being formerly incarcerated herself, she knows firsthand the discrimination that takes place with many companies across the world. She was able to stand up to that discrimination and land a job with Microsoft, one of the biggest tech companies in the world. She believes that anyone can change and that no one should be judged by their past mistakes for the rest of their lives, especially if they have put in the hard work and effort to change. Shelley?
Hey, thank you, Daryl. Hello, everyone. Super excited to be here today. So I think storytelling is so important, and storytelling can help change the world. And I think, that's part of the reason why I'm here today at this event to share my story of struggle and success. And so one place that I like to start is my childhood, because statistically, they say that 76% of children follow in their parents' footsteps. And like my father, I ended up becoming a drug addict, a drug dealer, and going to prison. And right after my arrest, I found out I was pregnant. And I was an addict for well over a decade. I used crystal meth, I used opiates, and when I didn't have opiates, I started using heroin. And I lived my life in bondage to substance abuse for a very long time. And then when I got arrested, and I know some people might think that's a horrible thing to happen, but it was one of the best things to ever happen to me, because it pulled me out of that world that I was living in. And then when I found out I was pregnant, I knew that I needed to change my life. There was no way that I was going to continue down that path and then be the same kind of parent my father was to me, to my son. And so I was fighting my case, and I decided I needed to get myself into treatment. And so I enrolled myself into a faith-based treatment program called Teen Challenge. And for me, I'm a spiritual person. I believe in God, and I knew I was going to need his strength to get through this. And I continued on that path of rehabilitation. When I finally got sentenced, I was given a 4-year sentence for conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute over 50 grams of meth. But I was given a 4-year sentence, and I did about 1.5 years in prison. But when I got to prison, I continued on that path, and I was very fortunate because the prison that I was at was unique and rare, because it did offer a ton of rehabilitative classes and programs that I was able to take advantage of. And so I took classes on forgiveness, how to forgive yourself and others, anger management. I took another drug treatment program. And all of these programs really taught me a new way to think, a new way of life. And it empowered me to become a better person, to make better decisions in my life. And, and as humans, we don't know, we only know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know. And so once I learned a new way to think, I learned rational thinking skills. I learned how to deal with my addiction. I learned how to deal with my anger. I learned how to forgive myself. I learned how to forgive others. And all of these programs just really helped get me to this place that I'm at today in my life. And so I've always had an affinity for technology. When I was getting high, one of the things that I'd like to do is actually build computers, which is kind of weird, but I ended up starting a mobile computer repair business. I was a drug dealer and a mobile computer repair person. And so when I was incarcerated, I would think about wanting to get back into tech because of my love for tech. But I didn't know how that was going to happen. And so I really started praying specifically about getting a job in tech. I didn't know what company. I just knew that when I got out, I wanted a career, not some job, minimum wage job that I knew would not break the systemic cycle of poverty and would not provide a life for myself and my son that I wanted. So I started praying specifically about the type of, getting a career in tech. And then I started journaling also. And so I believe whatever your thoughts are and what you focus on, you attract into your life. Your thoughts are your life. You can manifest things. And so I really started manifesting this job before I was even released. And so once I was released, I found out about a program called Code Tenderloin, and they actually help underserved communities like the formerly incarcerated actually break into tech companies. And I was in the halfway house. For those of you who don't know what a halfway house is, it's your transition home from when you get released from prison. So you're halfway to freedom, hence the word halfway house. So I had to finish out my sentence there in the halfway house. And the news came on, and that's when I heard the news reporter talking about Code Tenderloin. So I quickly jumped on their website, signed up for the next cohort, and they taught me very valuable skills like how to interview, how to write a resume. And then the other thing that they did was so important is they take you on a networking tour, because you're more likely to get a job if you network. And so they took me to Microsoft, they took me to LinkedIn, they took me to Twitter, they took me to NerdWallet, all these different companies. And so when I was at the Microsoft retail store, they had actually said they were hiring. And so I submitted my resume and I got a call back within a few days for an interview. And this is one of the most amazing moments of my life, because here I was fresh out of prison, and now one of the biggest tech companies in the world is calling, little old me for an interview. And I couldn't believe it. I knew if I could get this job, it would change the trajectory of my life. So I went in for the interview. I did well. She offered me the position right on the spot. And then I had to fill out the background check. And then once the background check came back, they rescinded my job offer. And I was devastated, because I thought, how long am I going to have to pay for this mistake? Although I've paid my debt to society, my slate is not wiped clean. And why is that? I've done all this rehabilitative work. I've turned my life around, but yet I'm still being punished for this mistake. And so while I was going through these emotions and dealing with this and trying to process it, I heard about this ordinance. It's a special law in San Francisco that actually helps people who've been discriminated against for the criminal record. And I contacted them, and we ended up fighting Microsoft. And I'm proud to say that I won, clearly. And so I've been at Microsoft now for 5 years, and I've had 3 promotions. Now, imagine if I wouldn't have fought. Imagine if I would have just tucked my tail in between my legs and said, you know what, I'm not worthy of this job at Microsoft. I'm not worthy of any good paying job. I'm just going to go and get this, minimum wage, dead end job and just settle for that, because I'm not good enough, but I didn't. And, you know, that programming that I had in prison taught me that. And it taught me not to let fear hold me back. And so for me, going through that experience created this passion inside of me to stand up and be a voice. And so if you do get a chance, please check out my TED Talk. If you Google my name, Shelley Winter TEDx, it comes right up. Oh, she dropped it in the chat. So if any of you want to check that out, but for me, it's been this passion of mine, because going through that discrimination and dealing with this firsthand, I knew I had to do something to be a voice, to speak out against it. And so I really want to just encourage anyone on this call that is maybe a manager, a recruiter, CEO of a company that does hiring, please consider fair chance applicants. Now imagine if Microsoft, if I wouldn't have won, then, you know, Microsoft wouldn't have this hardworking employee, loyal employee that I've, you know, brought to the table. And so we are not our past. People can change. And so I'm just, thank you for, you know, listening to my story, and I hope that it's inspired you and kind of opened your eyes a little bit. But thank you so much. Daryl, I'll pass it back to you. I don't want to take too much time. I could keep going and going.
We really appreciate you, Shelley. Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your story too.
Yeah.
Shelley, Ken, both of you, I'd like to invite you to come back on if you have time. I know you've got busy lives and a lot going on, running your businesses, making change out there on the front lines where work happens. And I know you've got a lot to get to. But I do want to extend an offer for you to stick around, hop back on the panel, and help talk about, you know, discuss some of the topics that we have moving forward. So I hope to see you stick around. Everybody, I encourage you to connect with Shelley and Ken, you know, follow their stories, follow the impact that they're having. For the next portion of the day, we're going to move into a little bit of background, featuring an organization, Root and Rebound, that dedicates themselves to this. They dedicate themselves to understanding the barriers, to helping advocate for justice system involved individuals and overcoming barriers. And, you know, Vina can explain it better than I can, so I'll just go ahead and give the mic straight to Vina. Vina?
Hi, thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming today and for welcoming me. My name is Vina Gursahani. I'm the Deputy Director of California Programs at Root and Rebound. And our organization provides direct services and does policy work all around fair chance and reentry legal services for system impacted folks. So it's my privilege to work at this organization and do the work that I do. I've been an attorney for about 12 years and working on behalf of system impacted people as they navigate life post conviction is what I went to law school to do. So I'm so happy to be here. Today we're going to go through fair chance hiring in California. The law that benefited Shelley is not just San Francisco based anymore. It impacts all California employers. And so wanted to go through the basics of that. Next slide, please. And the next one as well. So our mission at Root and Rebound is to restore power and resources to the families and communities most harmed by mass incarceration. And we do this through a three-pronged model: legal advocacy, public education, and then policy reform and litigation. And our model is rooted in the needs and expertise of the people who are directly impacted. So prior to taking this role, I was a direct services attorney at Root and Rebound, helping folks in matters that both that Shelley described, that people getting discriminated against based on their conviction histories and employment, not able to find housing, needing to get their record cleaned. We also do a lot of public educations, work like being here on this panel. We've put together a lot of resources, including guides for both those experiencing reentry on how to get a job, and then also for employers, if you need guidance on how to do fair chance hiring. And then we also take on systems reform. So ban the box, or AB 1008, which is now the law in California. It was a long time coming. It took a lot of work by activist groups to get that passed, and I think our state is better for it. So that's just one example of systems reform. Next slide, please. Just a little map of where we operate. We're statewide, so we can assist anybody in California with a conviction, or any employer, or our main office is in Oakland. I'm personally located in San Bernardino County, and we have a presence all through the state. And we also have an office in South Carolina, as we hope to expand nationally. And next slide, please. So the how and the why. Why do we do the work that we do? Next slide. So, oh, one back, sorry. So how we got here. It may or may not be surprising, but 1 in 3 Americans has a criminal record, a conviction history. And since 1978, California's prison population has grown over 600%. And so although I've been doing this for a while now, these statistics are still shocking to me. But it shows just how many people can be impacted by this if we were to allow discrimination solely based on a conviction history move forward. Next slide, please. So through our work, we've seen that if you consider the federal, state, and local laws, people in reentry can face 48,000 legal reentry barriers. There are, you think about local laws, there are, nuisance laws that encourage landlords to not give apartments to folks with conviction histories. State laws that prohibit things, federal laws, it's if you're convicted of a federal crime, it's almost nearly impossible to get that record expunged or cleaned. And so, every year, folks are getting released and then faced with incredible barriers to changing their lives around, even if they want to. Next slide, please. So why is fair chance hiring important? Employment is the single most important factor in determining recidivism. And in 2014, the US economy lost $87 billion by not hiring workers with conviction histories. And yearly, about 60,000 Californians return home from state prison. Thousands more cycle in and out of county jail. And so that's an incredible chunk of the workforce that if we just wrote off, what we would not only be closing off pathways for them, but also just, not benefiting our own companies or the economy. And next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the law that, sorry, let me back up. As I mentioned, in California, we have a fair chance hiring law. It's also known as Ban the Box. It went into effect in 2018 statewide. There are some cities and counties that have more specific and actually stronger ordinances. So San Francisco, Los Angeles, but statewide, we have fair chance hiring. Next slide, please. So under both state and federal law, you can't have a blanket ban on hiring somebody with a conviction. So the Equal Employment Office says that policies that exclude people with criminal justice involvement likely violate Title VII. So even though that's guidance, I just wanted to put out there that potentially blanket bans saying something like on an advertisement, no felons, wanted, or felons need not apply, that can be considered not only a violation of state law, but also federal law. Next slide, please. So what is California's Fair Chance Act? So an overview. It went into effect January 1st, 2018. It affects almost all employers with 5 or more employees. There are certain exceptions, which I'll go into on a different slide. But they are designed to protect people with criminal records from discrimination at the hiring process. And it's enforced by the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing, meaning that if a potential candidate feels that a potential employer violated the Fair Chance Act, they would file a complaint, and an employer could suffer civil penalties for any violation. Next slide, please. So there are three parts to California's Fair Chance Act. There's ban the box, fair chance process, and off-limits information. So we'll talk about part one first. Next slide. Thank you. So what is ban the box? It means that box that you used to be able to have on initial employment applications, have you ever been convicted of a felony? That can no longer be there. An employer must wait until after a conditional offer of employment to run a background check or ask about an applicant's conviction history. Just yesterday, I saw an application from an employer who said that they were fair chance friendly and wanted to hire folks with conviction history. On the actual application, asked the question. They gave a little caveat that in California, but they still had the question on there, and that's no longer allowed. So that means that, as Shelley was describing, you fill out the application, you do the interview. Only after the interview can you run the background check. And then there's a process with that afterwards as well. So there are exceptions to this, meaning there are certain employers who are allowed to ask prior to the conditional offer. And the biggest category is jobs working with vulnerable populations. So in the state of California, example, daycares are required to run background checks at the initial outset. So that's an example of jobs working with vulnerable populations, children, elderly, people with disabilities, people who are incarcerated. Law enforcement jobs also come under that exception, and jobs with access to personal financial data, such as banks, credit card companies. And so if we were talking about part two, the fair chance process, and some of the slides down the line have like a graphic that's kind of helpful in regards to the timeline. But once you get to the stage where you're allowed to run a background check, employers are then required to make an individualized assessment of whether an applicant's conviction history has a direct or adverse relationship with the duties of the job. They've got to give notice that the applicant has the right to respond if they're going to rescind the offer for employment. And this process is still applicable if an individual starts the job and then the background check is run, weeks later. So we saw this, especially in the initial part of the COVID-19 pandemic, employers rushing to get critical workers, frontline workers on the job, running the background check, and then terminating. No matter when they run the background check, they've got to do the fair chance process. Okay, next slide, please. So what is the individualized assessment? It requires the employer to consider the nature of the offense, the time passed since the offense, and the nature of the job duties. So the nature must be considered when contemplating terminating an offer based on a conviction history or what's found in the background check. Next slide, please. So if an employer decides that they want to terminate the conditional offer, they've got to advise the employee in writing in a pre-adverse action notice. So they've got to disclose the conviction that the employer is basing the decision on, and the background check itself. And then also give 5 days for the right to respond by the employee, 10 days if the employee says that they are challenging the background check itself and that the background check is inaccurate. Next slide, please. So what is considered evidence of rehabilitation that must be considered? So if we were looking at that timeline, once an employer says, okay, I'm not going to carry through with this offer, I'm telling you that I'm going to terminate it, I'm giving you 5 days to respond, what an potential employee can do in those 5 days is offer evidence of rehabilitation or mitigation. So I advise my clients to come up with a personal statement, a letter that says, hey, this is why I'm not the conviction that I have on my record. I advise them to spell out the nature characteristics that an employer is supposed to consider, and then attach things that also show rehabilitation. So pardons or certificates of rehabilitation, diplomas and certificates, letters of support, and other mitigating offense evidence. And next slide, please. So what an employer does with that that's their decision. If a potential employee feels that that evidence was not considered, that it has no relation, that can be grounds for a DFEH complaint. Something that also can be grounds for a complaint is if an employer considers information that it can never ask about. So for example, under the Fair Chance Act, an employer can never ask about arrests that did not lead to a conviction, court-ordered diversion programs, convictions that have been sealed, dismissed, or expunged, or minor marijuana-related offenses. So if an employer in California makes an employment decision based on any of the things listed here, it's a definite violation of the DFEH, of the Fair Chance Act, and can be reported to the DFEH. Next slide, please. So more on legal compliance. So if you look down here, and I'll be wrapping up my section in just a minute, below is the timeline, the application, the background check, the individualized assessment, pre-adverse action notice, client response. Then the employer can respond whether, okay, no, you're hired, or actually we're moving forward with terminating the offer. And then if the employee feels that they've been wrong, they can file a DFEH complaint. And they have a year to do so. And then that kicks off an investigation. I mentioned on this slide too that some local governments also have enforcement agencies, San Francisco and Los Angeles being one of them. Next slide. So if you wanted to learn more, Root and Rebound has a California's Fair Chance Hiring Toolkit. Hard copies are available for $11, but the virtual version is free. So you can check out our website. It's on there, and I'll be sticking around and happy to answer any questions at the end of the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vina. Thank you so much to your organization for all the work that you're doing. Up to this point, we've heard from a few folks that can speak from their lived experience. We've met some of the folks that dig deep and really try to understand the barriers that our justice system presents. And now we're going to pivot to some of the folks that team up with job seekers and help them overcome those barriers. I won't add anything more than that. I'll just give it straight to Dr. Smith, Dr. Mitchell Smith. You have the microphone.
Thank you, and welcome everyone. I'm really excited about being on this morning. My name is Dr. Mitchell Smith, and I am training director with the community-based organization known as Young Community Developers, where we provide workforce development, case management, and job placement services. More importantly, I am a mentor, I'm motivated, and I am dedicated to fair chance hiring, both personally and professionally. I'm your moderator for today, and we have some people that will introduce themselves in a moment. and we want to pose some questions to them. So I want to start off with Ben Rishwain, the solar panel coordinator. And Ben, I wonder if you would take over for a minute and just real brief introduction.
Thank you. I wanted to thank Jacqueline and Daryl at Rising Sun, as well as Stacy at SOMA. You guys have been a big support to our people in our solar program, and as they seek opportunities, as they transition out of the classroom and into the workforce. I represent Homeboy Industries. Our founder's Father Greg Boyle, he's a real visionary, and he started our organization in the late 1980s in Boyle Heights. Boyle Heights is a historic neighborhood in Los Angeles, heavily impacted by gangs and gang violence. And as a part of his mission and outreach, he started a bakery that offered jobs in the community as an alternative to gang and gang life. From that point on, Homeboy Industries has emerged as the largest gang intervention agency in the nation and possibly the world. And so he started a bakery program, a jobs as an alternative. Now that has turned into something was an 18-month kinship grant. And some of the highlights of the kinship grant are financial support, mental health support, tattoo removal, substance abuse classes, housing, and a myriad of other workshops. And so, you know, from that kinship grant comes my program, which is the solar education program. And what we do is we give training on twofold. There's an education. We work with the East Los Angeles Skills Center and Grid Alternatives, and we educate people of the how, the why, the safety, the history, the applications of photovoltaics in the real world. And also part of our program, there's a vetting of our people committed and are they ready to take on work. And so that's just a brief introduction. I know we're pressed for time, and I'll leave it there. That's what I do, and that's who we are. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Ben. We certainly appreciate that. I next would like to introduce or have you introduce yourself, and that is Marlon Jeffries. And we'll try to keep our introductions to a minimum because we sure have some questions to pose to you all.
All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Marlon Jeffries. I'm the Senior Program Manager for the Opportunity Build program at Rising Sun Center for Opportunity. We are a 12-month program. It starts with 10 to 12 weeks of job training here at Oakland, our headquarters here at Oakland. It's a combination of hands-on training and classroom training. I've been in my current role for a little bit over 3 years. And I'm also an alumni of the program, and I like the work and I love the work I'm doing because I can help people who have been through similar situations as I have, or who are looking for a opportunity that doesn't necessarily judge them for their past and let them start a new life and begin a career.
Very good. Thank you so much and welcome. We have some questions for you in a moment. Also would like to introduce at this time, Janie Hodge, Executive Director for Paving the Way Foundation.
Good morning. My name is Janie Hodge, and I am founder and executive director of Paving the Way Foundation. I want to say it's a pleasure to be a part of this workshop here, and that many of my fellow panelists have been an inspiration for myself and the work that I do in my community. We are located in the Antelope Valley, Lancaster to be specific. We have a training program for solar construction, as well as case management. I must say that Pastor Greg over at Homeboy was my motivation to start our work group in the Antelope Valley. My question is fair chance. Is that an opportunity, or is that, or should it be, what should I say? I think I've gotten nervous. But I want to say thank you for allowing me to be a part of this panel, and I'll wait for the question to be asked. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you, panelists. Very specific questions that I have for you all to answer. And I'll pose the first question to you, Ben. What specific goals do you have for returning citizens to reintegrate successfully? And how does your organization measure this success?
Sorry. Let's see, we're us being a community-based organization, our goal is to rehabilitate individuals no matter what. And so I guess I would just tell a quick story about a guy who came through our program. He'd been in our agency. He's a multi-generational gang member. He'd been in and out of our agency over 18 months of that kinship grant, and nothing seemed to stick for him. So during the pandemic, he got into our solar education program. And while others were dropping out during the pandemic, he just kept on showing up. And at the end of the education program, SOMA had offered an 80-hour opportunity. And basically he got on that job and he's been working ever since. So at that moment in time, this guy who, if you made a bet that he would finish the class, I mean, he came through, and all the odds were against him. And he ended up being the best person I had to offer for employment from the class. And he ended up being my most reliable. And today he continues to be that. So that's what we do at Homeboy Industry. You know, we measure success not so much in metrics, but in what we call, no matter whatness. We support people no matter what, so that we give them the time to find themselves, to get their feet on the ground. And then when the time arises, they can seize the opportunity.
Thank you very, very much. Marlon, I'd like to pose this question to you. Can we hear about anecdotal success stories to better understand the elements to successful reintegration of the formerly incarcerated?
Yes. I just want to give a little background. I'm speaking from lived experiences. I served 26 years in prison, and I did a lot of work on myself to be able to get out, and I worked with others. We worked together to help each other get out. And for me, my understanding is success starts before you parole or you make probation, right? I think Shelley mentioned this. We work on changing our thinking, right? So a lot of it starts inside, right? We have to change our thinking. Sometimes we call it a paradigm shift, where an event or something changes the way we're thinking and we decide to change our behavior as a result of that. I think also one of the things that I've been hearing as a common theme is and also that we see a lot in our program, is people lack confidence, right? So you got to build your confidence up. Like, for instance, I had to build my confidence up because it takes confidence to be able to accept rejection when you interview, fill out an application, interview, and think you have a job, and then they do a background check or something. And then that's a new barrier or a new challenge that we are now faced with, that we may have never experienced or don't have any experience with. So also, success is built on having a support network, a support network of individuals that can help you reintegrate back into society, even if that's just people walking you around, taking you places to show you different things. For me, I went through a transitional house. So each time someone would come home, someone that had been out for a while would help people with the basics. And I think for people like me, I think Shelley mentioned this, and maybe Kenneth too, is that what can I identify as a viable career option before I come home? And when I first come home, what are my career options? Some of the trades we learn inside are not necessarily trades that would be career options when we come home. So finding ways to identify industry opportunities, training programs like Rising Sun and other programs to help develop people's learning outcomes and their skills, and being able to use the available resources that are in the community. There are resources to help support individuals like me. It just sometimes it takes additional time to find these resources. And when we're looking at different industries or different opportunities, I think one thing that I've noticed is that lived experience is not a teachable skill. So, and Kenneth mentioned this, like that maybe people who have lived experiences don't have the professional development that we want to see in other areas, right? But that don't mean that they're not good for the opportunities that employers have for individuals, right? So I think maybe in social work, maybe in some other types of work where people need mentors. I think Dr. Smith, you talked about being a mentor, right? People want to hear from people who have similar or lived experiences that they can relate to, and people that look like them, right? So I think a lot of times when people are coming home, right, and a lot of their discouragements come from things like that, right? They don't see people that they can relate to or that they can talk to when they're trying to apply for positions or they're trying to find out more about positions. And I think that that for each person is different. And just to touch on a few occupations that I've seen people that I know have went into who have done a certain amount of time, construction has been one of the ones over a variety of different construction fields. I've seen quite a few people come out and be successful in those areas. I've seen people come out and be successful in social work as drug counselors, as mentors, as directors and managers of different programs. So these are just some of the few instances that I can kind of speak to at this time. I've seen others who have started their own business because I think that some of the challenges and barriers that are a part of what the hiring, the application process is discouraging. And sometimes people, like Shelley said, some of us have some skills that are not necessarily legal, but it helps us when we decide that we want to do something else. So a lot of the things that we learn from our past, they're used to judge us and hold us back, but those things also provided valuable lessons that we take and move forward and pass along in mentorship and things of that nature.
Thank you so much for that response, Marlon. I'd like to turn now to you, Janie, and ask a very specific question, and that is, how can solar contractors and employers, how can they support justice-involved employees or prospective employees?
In taking a look at that question, I am very excited to answer it because I think with fair chance, we should be open to giving the opportunity, addressing the person that's sitting before you as a new person, not judging by past experience. I think solar industries should connect to more of agencies such as SOMA and GRID to be able to give opportunity to those coming home to have work experience. I think that they should reach out to agencies such as Homeboy, myself, and Lancaster, and other agencies that do the training and that are helping to build the whole person to be ready for work. So I think that I would say for solar industry to continue to grow, the doors should be open for new experienced skill sets, and look at the agencies that are doing the training and be able to accept referrals and build relationships with such agencies so that we can do the best job that we can to get them the best persons for the job.
Very good, thank you. Is Shelley still on the line? Shelley?
Shelley had to jump off, so maybe we could just direct.
Very good. What I'd like to pose this question to, and maybe Vina, I see you're on the line. Maybe you can speak to this question. Are there any common myths around hiring incarcerated citizens that you would personally like to address?
I'm not sure I guess in my experience with like, especially with companies that are larger, you know, they're used to going down, you know, if and national companies, they're used to just, okay, there's a background check, it comes up with anything, we're just gonna do, we're gonna terminate the offer. You know, they're not willing to do the individualized assessment and consider these things unless, you know, so it really comes down to the employees sometimes knowing their rights and enforcing them, and then pushing companies to do the right thing. And so if I were to give advice, I would encourage the employers on this panel to really start to consider each individual applicant as an individual, you know, the really engage in the nature assessment, because somebody could have been convicted, you know, 20 years ago, and that doesn't mean that they are there, whether it's 20 years ago, whether it's 10, whether it's 5, you know, consider what's happened since that time, who they are today, if the conviction truly relates to the job duties, because most of the time it doesn't. And so are you, you know, and so to the employers to really ask yourself, are you, you know, just scared by the fact that there's something on the background check, right? And so to really invest in that assessment, I guess that's what I would say. I'm not sure if that answered the question though.
Actually, it did. Very, very helpful to understand and discuss the common myths that prospective employers have out there. Want to pose another question, and this is kind of open to all panelists, and that is, can you talk about some of the challenges that returning citizens face when looking for careers?
I would, if I can, just real briefly, one thing that's been pretty common with us is people come out of prison after 10, 15 years, and the digital world has sort of changed everything. And that's a huge obstacle. Of guys sometimes don't know the difference between their email and a web browser. And so I find that to be a huge obstacle for a lot of guys that I've dealt with.
And some of the experiences that we've had are that the guys are having to adjust to, depending on how long they've been incarcerated, having to adjust to the change. Like you said, the phone, some were gone a long time and the phone system is different. So many more people are in stores and that kind of thing. So there is an adjustment period that takes place for those that have been gone a while to be able to grasp the difference between the incarcerated life and life on the street as a citizen.
And I just want to add real quick, speaking like from personal experience, lack of work experience, lack of skills, the technology divide. And I think a lot of times, right, like I think someone mentioned earlier, people settle, right? They don't know where to look for livable wage careers, right? So they settle for whatever comes their way. I'm not saying don't settle for something, but have something. We're trying to build and start a career so that we can live like we're supposed to live, right? When people change their thinking, their behavior change, right? But then when we come home, the people that hold the power are not giving us the opportunities we need, or we can't find always the opportunities due to lack of professional development, like Kenneth said, right? Like maybe I don't interview how people typically like others to interview, or maybe my application doesn't speak to my actual qualifications. So I think those are some of the challenges and barriers that individuals like myself face when we first come out.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else on that question? I'd like to take a question from the audience, I believe. Blanca Lopez asked, how can we get employers who are new to Fair Chance or not familiar with it to become fair chance employers?
I would simply say that organizations like SOMA really help that, in that there's sort of there's an incentive, and it opens a door for a lot of our people, so they get an opportunity. And so being creative in that way, there's so much funding that's out there. There's so much money that's going to be poured into solar with this, infrastructure deal. Working with organizations that are there on the ground, there's incentives and there's help and there's subsidy, and I think that's a major way in which we could make a dent in all this.
I also think that the AJCCs in our community are giving out a lot of information in regards to the fair chance and bringing employers the information that they need to make the right decisions. We also talk about it at our chamber meeting and things like that. So I think those kinds of presentations help greatly in a way of getting information to the actual employers.
Well, we're doing really, really well for time. We're right on time. I want to pose another question at this time, and that is, why do you think the inclusion of fair chance hiring in the construction industry is so important?
I think personally, the construction industry offers a lot of opportunities, whether it's solar or union apprenticeship programs or union crafts. There's a lot of different pathways for individuals. There's not just, you don't just have to be a person that does manual labor. There's positions as business reps, labor reps, as superintendents, as dispatchers, as apprenticeship coordinators. There's a variety of different positions that someone could take in the construction industry, right? So that's just kind of what I think. Construction is big business. We see it going on everywhere, and buildings are going up all the time around here in Oakland and San Francisco. So those are great opportunities for people that's coming home and going to be living in these areas to support their families, to start their lives over, and be a pillar in their communities.
And since there are these opportunities, and I agree with that, what are the benefits of what are the benefits of highlighting the talent of the job seekers themselves?
The benefits of highlighting the job seekers themselves, I think, like the last question, for employers and contractors, it's an educational experience, right? They have to be educated on people like me that come home and go into some of these trades. Maybe we give them some data. I know one thing for our program, people that come through our program that typically have done, say, 10 or more years, they're usually the best people in our program. They become mentors in our program, leaders in our program, and usually leaders in their trades. And they go on into better positions in their trades, and they're able to bring others along after them. If that answers your question.
That most definitely asks the question. Chris asked a question earlier, and maybe this is for you, Vina. What share of Department of Fair Employment and Housing complaints lead to the person getting their offer restored?
Yeah, so in my personal practice, and note that I'm not giving any legal advice, but if somebody comes to me and they're in their pre-adverse action period, meaning they've gotten the notice that their offer is going to be rescinded, or they're very close to it, I ask the question, do you want, are you really interested in this job? Do you want the job? Or maybe it's both, or are you really are you wanting to make sure that the law is enforced correctly? Because if the purpose is, no, I really want this job, then instead of advocating through DFEH, I, if they're eligible for our services, advocate directly with the employer. So reach out and inform the employer, hey, this is the Fair Chance Hiring Act. This is why you should give this person another chance. It doesn't hurt the prospect of going down to DFEH, but it's more likely in my experience to actually get the person the job. The DFEH process, unfortunately, takes quite a while. So for multiple reasons, I think everybody's kind of understaffed, but also it just takes a while, and that's an unfortunate issue, but they will investigate, and you can ask for your job back or the job as part of that investigation, and that can be the remedy. But it's because the process takes so long, it wouldn't happen for quite a while. Whereas if you're able to find an attorney or an advocate in this space, and they're able to advocate on your behalf directly with the employer, that's most likely, that's the best way to actually reverse the decision in real time or closer time to the decision, and then get you the job back.
Thank you for that response. And just as a quick reminder, please feel free to ask questions using the question and answer function. Sarah has a question, and that question is, how can fair chance employers ensure that they are visible to those who are interested? What should outreach and communication look like?
Is it just a simple inquiry to organizations, to my organization? If they were to email us and let us know that they were interested in that, that would work for me.
And also, I think something as simple as placing it on their website that they are a fair chance hiring employer would also help. And then they, if I make no mistake, they still have those lists of people that hire for a fair chance to hiring to be involved in that list as well. Are some of the things that I think would be helpful for them to get noticed in regards to their ability to hire.
Yeah, and I think when I was inside, I did see a list floating around of fair chance employers, and also connect with the probation and parole departments and other community-based organizations that are providing workforce development, are connecting people to employers.
There is a listserv called 70 Million Jobs. 70millionjobs.com. They hold themselves out to be a fair chance employer listserv. I have not utilized them. I'm just throwing them out there that's also one possible avenue.
Very good, thank you. And the following question is something that we all, I believe at some point, because of our dedication to fair chance housing, have had to deal with or answer. And that is, how do you foster a culture to be more inclusive of fair chance employment?
I would just say that given my experience at our agency, Homeboy Industries, we really put an emphasis on community, and each individual inside of our building are a part of our community, and our community is a part of a greater community. And I think that's a huge paradigm shift to get out to the rest of the world. But one by one and slowly creating community with each other is really what it takes, just at a very fundamental, foundational level of just seeing us all as a part of the same community, working towards the same social justice, the same rights for everyone, is how it happens. It's a tall order, but that's how I see it happen.
And I'll agree with that. Paving the way in the Antelope Valley, we call it family. And in each one teach one. So as I get my skill level and I get my understanding and my process of change, I pass that on. I give back And as each one gives back to the community grows. They hear about the opportunities, they hear about fair chance hiring, they hear about the change that people are going through, and one at a time, the culture of the community changes. And that's how we see it happening in the Antelope Valley.
Thank you. We have a two-part question from Sophia Torres. Does Fair Chance hiring programs also provide immigration support and mentorship to those folks in reentry? And speak also to the support in applying for employment authorizations, visas, etc. I'll repeat, does Fair Chance hiring programs also provide immigration support and mentorship to those folks in reentry?
I'll say the root and rebound, when somebody comes to us, we do holistic assessments. And so if somebody has, somebody is in reentry, has job concerns and also immigration concerns, we will do our best to support on both. But I don't think that applies to every agency. And I know that as we continue to grow our expertise in different areas, immigration is one that's very technical and one that we're not experts in currently, but we have warm referrals and can provide some assistance. But I think most of the time they're not treated necessarily as like one issue. They'd be separate issues, at least for us.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask all panelists, feel free to ask or share anything that you would like at this time as we wrap up.
Just really quick, I wanted to mention that we have about 10 minutes left of the time that we have, for today. And so if anybody has any final questions, this would be a good time to go ahead and put them in the chat. But yeah, any final thoughts? Let's go one at a time down the road. But also, I'd like to see if we, if each of you has a thought to close out around why should employers hire your program graduates? Each of you are teaming up with job seekers that have tremendous skills and talents. Why should employers afford them that fair chance?
Well, I guess I'll start. Those that complete our training are at a point in their lives where they have gone through a lot of challenge. They go through a training that also puts challenge, but it allows them to work through those challenges. So I think that any employer that is looking for someone that is ready to go to work, that has shown that they are willing to do and focus and stay committed, should be given that opportunity. And with the training that we offer, those are part of the program. And like I said, we're a family, so we support each other through whatever process. Sometimes there's family issues during the training process. Whatever it is, we help them to walk through that. So with that being said, we stand by our go out and develop and seek work, and we help them even past the house. We're always there for them. So that's one of the reasons why I think that our employers should open their doors and allow our trainees to become a part of their family.
Excellent.
All right, I can go next. For Rising Sun, I think employers should hire Opportunity Build graduates because we're doing our best to produce quality people, right? We take a whole person approach. We are a 12-month program with 10 to 12 weeks of job training, right? We got hands-on training and classroom training, but we also got case management services, career service manager. We have mental health support. We have a drug counselor that we work with, and we refer out to other community-based organizations that provide services that we may not be able to provide. And we check in with our participants bi-weekly while they're in cohort and monthly once they graduate to make sure that if they're faced with any challenges, barriers, or anything, whether it's employment related or moving towards employment, that we're supporting them, right? So I remember I would mention something about a support network, right? Opportunity Build staff becomes that support network to make sure that people are equipped with the skills that they need to go into the building trades when they leave our program. And most of the times, people that go into the building trades and they're really serious about it and they decide that that's what they want to do, especially those justice involved individuals, they go out and they do really well, and they pave the way for the next person that comes after them, right? So I think that's one of the reasons why this is so important, so that we can pave the way for more people and have more opportunities readily available for individuals when they're coming out, or while they're inside, we can get the information inside so that they know about the opportunities that's available for them.
I would just simply say that I think that the best companies are the companies that invest in people, and they really invest in those people, and as the people grow, the company grows. So I've had plenty of experience with people who don't get a lot of chances, are looking for a second chance, and when they're engaged in that way, it's a huge benefit to those individuals. They feel connected to their employers, and that's why it's important for the employers to look towards our people. They're qualified people, they're given a chance, and when they're engaged and treated with respect, they're great people to have around.
Daryl, before I turn it over to you, I'd like to share something that I use as I work with individuals that come through my program. Get free, stay free. We are not perfect. We are open to change. We live for tomorrow and have hope for the future. I can, I will, I must. Thank you all for this morning, and thank you for this session. Wonderful opportunity to have met you all, and I look forward to working with you as we provide great opportunities for people that need fair chance hiring.
Thank you so much, Dr. Smith, for summing it up like that. And thank you to each of the panelists for taking this time to really share what your programs do, the work that you do, and the way that you team up with job seekers. I think, just to summarize really quickly what I heard, I really liked one thing that Marlon pointed out, that the individuals who have been incarcerated for more than 10 years, we don't see them just become trainees, they become mentors, they become committed to the process, they become leaders. So if you take a chance if you afford that fair chance, you're not just getting an employee, you're getting somebody that could be a project leader, a team leader, that mentor, that glue on the job site that holds everything together. I also want to echo that I heard from everybody on the panel that you're not just hiring a person, you're hiring a support network as well. And so I think that's a huge value add here. So, if there's any final questions, we can go ahead and pose them to the group. We can also do them in wrap up as well. But I just want to, put a cap on all of this and say that we hope today, maybe this is another step as an employer on your journey to becoming a fair chance employer, or maybe this is your first step. But either way, we hope this is one step forward that introduces you to some resources that can help you understand the Fair Chance Hiring Act and offer some processes that can help you comply with that. Thank you to Root and Rebound. We encourage you to connect with Root and Rebound and other organizations that provide resources in helping individuals overcome those barriers and help employers in supporting those individuals and finding those opportunities. I encourage you to reach out to the organizations like Homeboy Industries, like Paving the Way Foundation, like Grid Alternatives, like Rising Sun, like Young Community Developers, and connect with them and talk about how they can help you find your next best employee that's going to be your next leader and be the future of your organization. I encourage you to reach out and keep this community going, keep these network connections strong. We will be sending a follow-up email at the conclusion of today where there's a poll for any feedback, and we'll also include contact information for anybody that's been on today. So I did see one final question come in. If there's it's a thank you. So with that, we'll go ahead and leave it there, but I want to give any final thoughts, any final words from any of the panelists that are on today. All right. And seeing none, I just want to thank you all for being here. Once again, thank you to the keynote speakers. And we look forward to connecting with you again, moving forward and forever. Thank you.